Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting radio-exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
Now, Positively Ernie with Ernie Anastas, a New York TV legend and radio host with great positive stories and interviews.
Thanks, Ernie. You're the best.
And now, here's Ernie.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Positively Ernie. I'm here with, the kinds of stories and interviews that I think are interesting and people who bring something to the table that we can all learn from. I want to talk today about an interesting topic, stress. Woo! Stress and anxiety. My goodness. I mean, it's part of everyday living, folks. Let's face it. That's exactly what we all have to face with. But, the idea of stress can be controlled in some ways. But, if you go through certain times, like, for example, we just had elections, it can raise the level of anxiety and stress. And it's over. Okay, the election is complete. It's in. The results are there. And there are people who are still saying, okay, how am I going to deal with this? What can we do? How can we make it, work for us? And that's what we want to talk about today, because there is a way to do that. And my guest today is fabulous. Her name is Karen Howard, and she's an experienced Washington congressional staffer. She's an author. She's got a lot of experience, and I want to say hi to her right now. Hi, Karen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, so nice to have you on board. The time is perfect. You've written this book. And I want you to tell us about that because, it makes a lot of sense. First of all, I love the title. Tell everybody the title of your book.
The title is Upset is Optional.
Upset is Optional. And you came up with that.
Yes.
And there's a story behind it.
There is a story behind it. I had a mentor who I lost a few years back who taught us all these beautiful practices through an acupuncture school program that I was a part of, a master's degree in applied healing arts, how to be a healing presence with words and actions.
Nice.
And at the end of his career, he decided to boil all of that philosophy down into 10 simple practices and start a mentorship program. And one of those practices, the core one, was upset is optional, and you can avoid unnecessary suffering.
Well, there are people out there, who are watching, who are listening right now and saying, Karen, I need help. Forget about politics for a minute because we'll get into that. But just in general, okay, people who have, a battle with stressful situations in life and dealing with anxiety and worrisome, it's not an easy thing. It really isn't.
It's not, and people feel unempowered in terms of being able to reflect on how to manage that.
Yeah.
There's always going to be suffering in the world. We do a lot of work professionally, personally, through church, family, friends, even politics to try and eliminate unnecessary suffering. But really what we're doing is eliminating suffering. It's like we can help people who are starving in countries and things like that. And so when it comes to our own unnecessary suffering or upset, people don't understand that things like words are as powerful as an inflammatory product in your body as eating a fast food meal.
Sure.
So being able to use these practices to bring yourself back to a sense of center and peace is really essential for your health and the health of your family and the people around you.
So, Karen, we're going to be in a session right here, okay? You're the therapist, and I'm listening to you, and other people are too. So you talk about using words to help us. I think a lot of people are probably saying, okay, you're telling somebody, to relax, stay calm, don't worry about it. But there's more to that. So tell us how we can use words to make us feel better.
So you hear a lot, especially during this election season, you've heard a lot of inflammatory conversation and ads. that's one way to take it in, and then you have to react to that, or you let yourself react to that. But I also find, even personally, that I spend a lot of time talking to myself. So one of my favorite words was becoming moron. And I'm like, we got to reframe that. I can't continue to walk around in my head going, what a moron. So I literally can reframe that to say, that's interesting. And it automatically, I feel a difference in my body. When I'm using language that is inflammatory like that could start an argument, I can feel my shoulders tighten. I can feel it in my stomach. I can, this causes ulcers, brings on asthma attacks. And we underestimate the power of that. Yeah. So you can create a literal word wall, and you can use that wall of words to kind of frame how you feel about certain things. When there were two men running for president, I used to refer to them as Mary Todd Lincoln and Martha Washington.
Oh, interesting.
And people were so confused because they didn't know who to be mad at.
I like that. Good thinking. When you talk about, talking to yourself, calming yourself down, we know, that there's a dialogue. And you're talking to somebody, and you might be trying to stay calm and saying, that's an interesting point. I'm going to take that into consideration. I didn't think about that before. Let me tell you how I feel. The other person, the other party has to be receptive, and they have to respond the same way. What if you're hitting someone who just doesn't want to agree or doesn't want to at least understand you and respect your opinion? How do you handle that?
We've been at this now for a lot of years. Sure. There was certainly one Thanksgiving where people barely could sit at the table with one another. And I'm not sure we're out of that yet. So at some point you have to sort of come to an agreement and say, this topic is either off limits, we have to agree to disagree, and let's switch to something that matters to us as a relationship, us as friends, us as a family, and leave that to the side. And just park it. Just park it. If you can't get to that space where I can sit and listen to it and not take it into my body. Right. Now, that is an option. I can, and I do that all the time. I'm happy to sit and listen to people vent or just give their viewpoint.
But you're an exception to the rule, Karen.
I'm practiced. That's all.
Well, exactly. But there are many people, and we all know this, who have very strong opinions. And I respect that. But they're very strong opinions, and they're not willing to listen or to be able to just relax and say, okay, I've made my point. Now let me listen to you. And relationships have really suffered. Family members, have split. Marriages have been broken. People have moved out of neighborhoods. Yes. People have decided not to move into a neighborhood because of political differences. And I mean, I've been covering news, as you know, a long time in New York, and I've seen, a lot of things happen over 4 decades, but I've never seen it, so strong. And I'm trying to figure out how we can work together. In fact, I offered a commentary on the air about it's time to come together. I mean, this is America. This is the way we live. We have the opportunity to express ourselves. We go to the polls, we vote, but then we have to accept what we have and try and work together in unison of some sort, at least be respectful. With your experience, and with your book and what you understood, how do we help to get to that point?
Understand first, you can't change anyone. And anybody who's been in a marriage for more than a day knows that. You just can't change anyone. So if it's the only thing you can manage is yourself. And you can try to reframe the argument as much as you want. Or you can look at yourself and say, I'm going to reframe this for me. And the way I do that is to say, and this is my favorite practice, it's the one I use the most, I'm going to serve 7 generations. I'm going to recognize everything that 3 generations before me gave me to get me to this space and time. And honor that. And I'm going to do this work for the sake of 3 generations to come that I may never know. And as long as I am in that space, and that is my work, I can refocus and reframe all of these conversations to find opportunity to maintain relationships with nieces and nephews who feel dramatically different.
Sure.
And still be a good auntie and a great sister and be able to be a listener and not get involved, not personalize my response, because it doesn't work anymore. Right. You're not going to change people's minds. We know that now. There's an outcome. Yeah. And it's funny because what I'm seeing now is those who are happy with the outcome are done talking about it. But now we have this dynamic that you're talking about,
Right.
which is there's still a whole lot of people out there who, the stress has been continual for everyone for months.
Right.
And now there's still 50% of the people
Sure.
that are feeling that.
Well, Karen, media has a lot to do with this. And, whether it's late night talk hosts who are issuing their own feelings and thoughts, whether it's just interviews that are being done on all the different channels, there's a responsibility there. And I'm hoping that we're going to see sort of a trend to be able to say, look, the country has spoken. This is where we're at. Now let's wait and see, and let's evaluate it as we go along, rather than trying to stir up something way in advance before it's even a problem. That's my concern, that sometimes we have to be extremely careful. The internet, social media, everybody has an opinion, everybody has a podcast, and it's a time for, tremendous amount of information that's being put out there. And a lot of it, as you know, is not factual. It's a lot of opinion. Is it news or views? That's a big line these days.
That's a good line, yes.
And people are trying to figure out, what am I really listening to? There's a responsibility there. Don't you agree with the media to be able to be
There's
careful?
a huge responsibility. And from my perspective, and I think the media should adopt this as well, is that this is a moment in time.
Yeah.
We have been, as a country and as a world, we have been through enormous challenges, horrible history, death and famine and wars and slavery. We have managed to stay a democracy this far along.
Sure.
So let's put this in perspective. This is 4 years, and there will be 4 after that. And when people were trying to figure out how to stay engaged, because there were a lot of people who wanted to check out of politics, you have a civic obligation, as does the media, to recognize that all the way up and down this ballot that we just voted has a ramification for each individual life. I don't care if it's dog catcher, city council, PTA.
Sure.
Without almost any exceptions, everybody works up that political ladder to where they get to a place where they have authority, control, power. So respect the fact that we all have an obligation to that, and know that this too, as my dad would say, this too shall pass.
Yeah,
He used to hate that. But no, this is it. This is the moment. The world is coming to an end. No, the world is not coming to an end.
Yeah.
This will pass. I can't predict the future. You can't predict the future.
No, it's difficult. But let's say, from your experience, spending a lot of time in Washington,
Yes.
being around all these political circles, in the congressional arena, knowing what goes on there, do you feel at this point, today, optimistic? Do you feel that perhaps we're going to shift a little bit and maybe there'll be a little more understanding, okay? And maybe we will at least try to be more understanding about what's going on and to respect our country and hopefully, have a good outcome.
That requires an enormous amount of optimism right now, doesn't it? And I will say that this is a transition like I have not seen before. And how people have managed themselves as elected officials will take time to figure out.
Yeah.
I don't believe that people got elected just to create problems. I don't know what the strategy is for them to be able to implement effective solutions in such a divided Congress. And the voters will make it quite clear in 2 years if they're happy or not.
Yeah.
That is the beauty of a democracy.
There's
always a marker.
And right now, Karen, we know that that the country has spoken, voters have spoken.
They have,
and they're saying basically, I'm simplifying it. We want change.
Yes,
we want change. And so, if that is the mandate, if that's the feeling, then what's the best thing we can do? What's the best thing we can do?
Certainly, as the parties look at, certainly the Democratic Party needs to take a really hard look at itself, and I think it will.
Yeah.
Because they missed the mark.
Yeah.
I missed the mark. I thought it was going to be much closer than it was.
People have to ask why.
And they have to sort through that.
What was the decision? Why did the country vote this way? Right. I think that's important for us to analyze rather than arguing, sitting back and saying, okay, it's like someone has a problem in a relationship, right? Someone does something that you don't agree with. You have to ask them, why did that happen? What created that situation for you to feel that way? Why did you take that action? Don't we have to find out that way in an intelligent system of understanding?
We do, and that's soul searching for sure. I mean, the demographics of the parties has changed dramatically, and it's changed pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So definitely there are problems in this world. There is suffering in this world that people have now voted with, and that requires elected officials at all levels to pay attention to what's going on. You know, I could look at the mayor of my city in Washington, D.C., and she has a third term. Not so sure that's a good thing. You know, are you paying enough attention to what is actually happening around you? And the economic forces in our politics does not help this at all.
Yeah.
That is for sure.
Well, you know, you raise a point there about basically term limits. And a lot of people are concerned about that. They're saying, you know what, you know, we need some fresh people, you know, and keep that motion going so that we have good ideas and people don't become so complacent and have so much authority and so much power that, you know, nothing gets done. I think a lot of people, and I hear this too, people are saying, you know, we have all of these politicians in there. They argue with one another. Nothing really gets done. They're taking care of their own interests, and we, the people, are suffering. And I think that there's a real hunger right now for that kind of change, if it can happen. People want to see that happen.
I think they want to see that happen, and I think it will happen if people who are elected because of that pay attention to that and not just think they're operating on some sort of personal mandate. And that will be the trick. Are they actually listening to their voters? Or are they just believing that it's carte blanche for them to do as they seem to think they know to do? So there's not a lot of, you know, humility in being a member of an elected body these days. And I think the Democrats should walk away with a real strong sense of humility in terms of what the party has missed in itself.
Yeah.
And that may start to shift, and we may start to see changes over this next 4 years, which is something I'm going to be looking at. In chaos, there is opportunity. And the smart legislators will be looking for those opportunities, and that will require working across the aisles.
You know, you were talking about 7 generations, you know, and I'm thinking about young people. I have an interest in a lot of, you know, young issues. I've written a couple of books for young people. And, you know, what messages are we sending out to our young voters and those kids who are not voting yet in terms of allowing them to think more about our government, our system of government, perhaps going into politics? We need good people. How do we encourage these young people to have a brighter outlook on wanting to be in public office?
That's a hard one.
Yeah, it's
That's
tough.
a hard one. I mean, because young people now consume their media and their news in such a different way than what we were afforded as children and through the school system and those civics lessons and I mean, I can't count how many times I ran for office. I started my 2nd grade. I ran for safety council. It's been in my blood all my life.
Had it in your blood.
My dream job was to be the first female Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Wow. What happened?
I realized I was going to have to live in Springfield, Missouri the rest of my life. I love you, Springfield.
The reality of things, right?
Yeah, the reality of things.
But that's good. But you had that drive.
I had that drive, and people were always running against me. So there was a real active current for a certain segment of people who wanted to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that still exists, but I do know that everyone younger than, you know, the age of probably 30 consumes all of their information from very different channels. And it's not necessarily reading, you know, Politico.
Right.
It's more likely to be a podcaster.
Yeah.
So I guess what we need to do is create a new civics world that's rooted in social media so that we can at least get the message out there.
You know, Karen, I believe in role models. I really do. I believe mentors are important, people that you admire, people that you aspire to be like. They've been a part of my life, and they probably have. You mentioned, you know, your mentor who unfortunately passed away. But we need those role models, and I think that there's a responsibility there. You know, whether you're a politician or you're a business leader or you're a community leader, a teacher, whatever it happens to be, there's a responsibility that I think we need to enlighten more people about, to say, you know what, why don't you understand the role that you're playing in this society? Understand what you're doing in your community and take it seriously and know that you're going to have an impact. Long after you're gone, you can affect 1 or 2 people, which would be great, but it would be much better if they had a larger group. But we have that opportunity. How do we instill that? You know, how do we get to people and say, look, take your responsibility seriously.
Everything is local. I mean, every time you honk a horn or you almost run a bike off the road, you're having an impact in your community. So when you're doing work that matters, like I run the Organic and Natural Health Association, and it keeps me highly motivated every day. I'm on the board of Women in Nutraceuticals, a new organization to advance women in my industry.
Wonderful.
I choose to do that kind of work because I do want to give back. And to me, that is the role model piece that I play and the mentorship I can offer. I have family members who do that kind of work. My father was a used car salesman and a car dealer all of his life.
Wow.
He served his community in a similar way by being a trustworthy source to be able to buy a car from.
Right, exactly.
So it doesn't require that you have to run for office. It just requires that you care about your fellow man and woman. You are actually serving your community in so many ways, just naturally. Be more cognizant of that. Be more intentional in that work. So when you are helping somebody when they're with their groceries, understand that this is work that matters. This is how you support being a citizen of your community and being a fellow human being that cares. I really think there's not enough love that we express on a daily basis anymore.
Man, that's the answer to a lot of things.
We
need to preach that, and we need to practice it.
We do.
Absolutely.
We do. And I think just those small acts of kindness have ceased to be so important anymore.
And you know what, Karen? I'm high on campaigns. Having been, in the news business, there are campaigns, people you can trust, some slogan, something that makes people feel attached and committed and comfortable with you. But I think we're missing campaigns in our country. I'll remember Nancy Reagan, just say no, just say no to drugs. That was effective. And I mean, I would love to see politicians, leaders, wherever you are, in corporations or in government, or whatever it happens to be, in the school system, to come up with campaigns that people can get on board with. Whatever it happens to be. You mentioned love, share love, smile, acts of kindness. But to make it such a strong campaign that people are aware of it. They're aware of it and they try to practice it. Hands across New York, hands across America, whatever it happens to be, and really push these campaigns so that people have a mindset to say, okay, this is the way I'm supposed to be feeling and thinking today. Let me practice it. Do you agree with that?
I do. I think corporate America should be taking the role on that lead. Like we've done a campaign, we had a very successful campaign to educate people on the power of vitamin D, especially minority populations that suffer unnecessarily because of higher rates of infant mortality, and just has a huge impact. Sure. And we carried that banner, and we still carry that banner. Good. It's a good banner for us. Yeah. But if you are that used car dealership in the state of Tennessee, you too can carry a public campaign to help people do better and be better. So even if it's safe driving, I mean, this is not, it shouldn't be a hard lift. It should be something that everybody in your organization can get behind and feel and recreate a sense of community that we can have continued just suffer tearing at the edges around.
There are two words that people use often, and I wish we would apply it more. Common sense. Common sense. If you come up with something that really makes good sense, common sense, a lot of people can relate to that because it's natural. And I think we need that. In terms of the future, okay, today and tomorrow, someone's listening to you right now. This is your field of expertise, trying to bring people together, trying to help us understand one another and to reduce the level of stress. What message do you have for our viewers out there to say, okay, here's my campaign, okay? Here's what I would like you to be thinking about. Here's a way that we can all make a difference. What's your message, Karen Howard?
I'd have to boil it down into one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to say it. I mean, it's upset is optional. Like every time you feel your body going into some sort of tense state, I would love for you to be able to sit back and just breathe deeply. Even if it was just one thing that you did every day, practice breathing from your gut, not your chest.
I like that.
Because every swimmer, every musician, anybody knows that if you're going to do something well, you got to do it a lot And deep breathing really can bring your body back.
I like that.
Right where it needs to be.
Now, people would like to be able to get in touch with you or get your book or any information that you can share and say, okay, if you want to get a hold of me or find some information that'll be helpful to you, what do they do? www.upsetisoptional.com. You can learn about my mentor, see the drug rehab facility that he supported with acupuncture, and you can order the book from Amazon. I like that. Where are you headed to next?
Headed back to Washington, D.C. Can't stay away too long.
Are you excited to be back there? You know, do you think there's going to be some really dynamic things happening?
I know there's going to be dynamic things. I really loved the respite to come to New York City.
Change of pace, right?
It's awesome. I love New York.
You love driving here?
No.
Whoa, there's another topic. Karen Hard, you're terrific. What a joy to have you here. Congratulations on everything you do and what you're doing. Come back again, and I know you're going to do another book because you started to tell me about it. A cookbook?
A cookbook.
That's going to be fun, right? You'll be talking about your Irish background?
Yep.
And any particular little hint? I know you're a little ways off from writing that book, but any hint in terms of what you want to do with that book?
Anybody who's had a family that's spent a lot of time in the kitchen knows that there's a lot of stories that go with it, and it's not always. Sometimes it's on a boat, and sometimes it's in a kitchen, and sometimes it's over a grill, and sometimes there's a lot of interesting dialogue.
Oh,
so it should be a lot of fun.
You're going to have a lot of fun with that book, okay? I'm getting hungry right now. It's time for lunch. Karen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All good things to you and your family, okay?
As well.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. Great interview. We have more coming up. Stay with us and stay positive. Bye-bye.